So joining me now is Chris Thomas, Cole's father. And Chris, I think I met you right in the very beginning of this case.
Yeah, you did. We did.
Yeah. And you've obviously been consistently following this and hoping for some kind of resolution. I know you came recently to North Carolina on the ninth anniversary. So it's been 9 years.
9 year.
Tell me, first of all, because I think sometimes it gets lost when we're talking about a person who is a victim of a crime. Tell me about Cole.
He was just a great kid, man. I never had to get on to him his whole life. He was funny, smart. He got his, he had his AA degree before he graduated high school. Went to the University of Florida. Um, just a great kid. He always done his work. He laughed. He liked to cut up. He liked to spend time with family. When he was young, he didn't hang out with a lot of other kids. He kind of hung around grown ups. So I don't know. I just enjoyed him, and he always was playing, which I was too. But I just miss him. That's it.
So at the time this happened, what was his job? How old was he? And what was your understanding of why he was in North Carolina?
So he was 22 years old. He had took a break from school to go work in some electrical type work, and he was actually at a solar field doing some electrical work. And at the time he went to North Carolina, I didn't even know he was in North Carolina at the time. Um, I didn't find out that till that Sunday, after he went missing.
Tell me how you learned about that.
Um, so um, I went uptown that day to get some. I'll never forget it, but I was getting some parts for my vehicle, and I pulled up, and uh, they were all standing out in the yard on the phone, and they came over to me and said that the North Carolina Police Department was on the phone with Cassie, and that Cole had been reported missing, and he'd been missing or was reported on uh, Black Friday morning, and we just heard about it on Sunday.
And I know that you guys like immediately got your camper, jumped in the truck, and drove to North Carolina from Florida. But you also made a call because you were, or sent a message. You knew some of the people he was traveling with, and tell me what happened. You found one of them on Facebook, and what did you
Yeah,
learn?
so the guy, Stephen Worley, that he was working with, he had been working with him for a little bit. I didn't really know the guy. I'd met him actually the day they left. I took him to a gas station to meet him so they could be on their way. And I knew he was working with him. So I immediately, as soon as they told me they was on the phone, it took me like literally a minute. I got on Facebook, found him, sent him a message. Hey, you need to call me ASAP. Um, I don't know, it was 2 or 3 minutes. He called me. Uh, I said, "What happened to my son? Where's he at?" Or I don't remember the exact conversation, but pretty much that he believed Cole. They killed Cole. So that was the first thing I heard. And I said, "Who?" And he said, "I don't know. Some guys he rode with." And that's pretty much all I knew at the time. So then I'm really freaking out. Because it went from him just missing, maybe he's gone off doing something. I don't know, to he's been killed.
And you had to live with that all the way on that drive, a
Well,
long
normally
drive.
it's a 7.5 hour drive, but it was Thanksgiving weekend. So it took me about 13 hours to get there with all the traffic.
And what did you tell the investigators when you first interacted with them? I mean, did you tell them, "Hey, I think this is a murder"?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I got there, told them the little bit that I heard through talking with the guy on the phone. We got there like 3 o'clock in the morning, and I told him something happens to my son. Something definitely happened to him, and they started calling Julian and Jeremy pretty much within the 30 minutes or an hour we were there. And
And those were some of the other people that he was traveling with.
I,
These were people he worked with.
right, they were on the job with him, and it's the two guys that he rode with.
So initially, there were these massive searches. and I know you were involved with some of them. What were those like? I mean, you were searching everything, right?
Everywhere. So that the police, the local police, the SBI, they'd meet at the fire department. Of course, I couldn't search with them, but I'd watch where they went, and then I'd go behind them. Because at the time, early on, I didn't know, I didn't have any information, right? And I wasn't aware of Benson. I didn't know that town. So I pretty much just went behind them along with searching everywhere else at the same time too. But um, I followed them over and over and over, and I'm thinking, the SBI, they're pretty high up, right? So they should have some why are they searching these areas? They must have something telling them that. So I would really search it behind them and over, and I stay out there all hours of the night searching.
And these were like everything from like woods to swampy areas to very rural.
Yes, yes. I mean, it was any and everywhere, really. I mean, they had so many different spots that they had searched, and I would go searching. But early on, I didn't know where this Rudy guy lived and all that's, very early on, I didn't. So, I mean, if it had been me and I knew that at the time, that's where I'd have been searching, right?
And remind our listeners who Rudy was.
But Rudy DeLeon, he was the guy that they went to his house in North Carolina. It was in Mount Olive, over on Indian Springs Road. That's where they went to originally and stayed that day, and then left that evening from his house. And
So there were a lot of potential people who knew something, right? And I know that was a big focus for you. Eventually, 4 people were arrested. They were not charged with murder. They were charged with concealing a death and with lying to authorities. Did you hope at that point that one of those 4 people was going to say, "Hey, I know what happened, and here's the location of Cole's body"?
yeah, I was pretty. I mean, that's the only thing I had was a little bit of faith and hope that one of them would talk. They stayed in jail for 9 months. Of course, I went up there every month. Every month they would have a bond hearing trying to lower their bond. And I had to sit in that courtroom and listen to so many different lies, which I knew it was, right? But, and then trying to pick out who was, who I thought was the weakest one at the same time that would probably wind up talking. And, of course, at one point, TJ's lawyer had mentioned that he would talk and he would tell everything if he could get protection. So, I went down that route trying to get them to give him protection, but supposedly it couldn't be done on a state level. It had to be on the federal level.
And at one point, didn't you actually pay to bond somebody out so you could try to talk to them?
Yeah, so we bonded TJ out like the 8th month he was in jail. We got him there. I went to court that morning. We got him there that evening at the Marshburn bail office there. David actually went and got his mom. He had TJ's mom there. Had a couple other bail bondsmen there and another private investigator, and they were all kind of in the room. And me and Kathy was in the back, and David pretty much said, "All right, I've just took him in the room. He knows y'all here. We got to just keep your cool." It was the hardest thing I ever had to do. But when we walked in the room, pretty much he was shaking. He was sitting down shaking. His legs was trembling. And, I pretty much asked him, "Where's my son? What happened to my son? Where's he at? Short of that, you're going to fry." I don't know, it was just the hardest thing I ever had to do was sit in front of somebody that I know had something to do with my son's murder, right? And he lied so much in the beginning. Well, all throughout while we were talking to him, but there were 6 people in the room, right? David kept talking to him, and finally,
And David was his attorney.
No, David was the private investigator.
Oh, he was a private investigator that you had hired.
Yeah, so David's also a bondsman as well, so he's the one.
Gotcha.
Out. So, now he's in David's custody, right? So we have him, and the whole thing's been recorded, the whole conversation. And he pretty much broke down like a little. At one point, after he kept trying to think about what he was going to say, and he'd pause, and he was fixing to tell a lie, and then at one point he just broke down like a 2-year-old and fell in the floor squalling, and pretty much got up and looked right at us and said, I'm sorry, he's never coming back. They killed him." And of course, I was very upset, but I asked him who killed my son, and he just for the people that don't know, he lived right across the street from Rudy. Right, that's the house they were at. Him and Rudy known each other forever, and he could have gave anybody his name. He could have made up a name, but he said Rudy shot him.
So there's so many stories, right? There's the story that, your son was driving a car, that people were in the car, that Cole got upset, that there was a drug deal, that he jumped out. But no one really knows what the truth is, right? I mean,
Well,
do
to a
you?
certain extent, I mean, we have pretty good ideas. So we know Cole was driving, right? Because one of them didn't have a driver's license, the other one was suspended. Um, there's video footage of him at the Handy Martin in Goldsboro, where he was driving. He got in the car. The police have about 11 minutes worth of video where they all went in the store, come back out. Um, and also while they were in jail, there was a couple, 2 or 3 other guys that were involved that actually come to Benson to pick up my son, and the one that put him in the car. And of course, while we were in jail, David kind of run that lead down, and we found out who it was. And he would go talk to them day in and day out for months. Um, Finally, got them to start talking, and took them to the police station. They gave their story, which the first story was they just coerced him to get in the car. The second story was pretty much, "Hey man, it's us, just get in." Kind of coerced him. And then, I kept telling David, I said, "Look, my son did not know these other guys. He's not getting in the car. If he's already walking or trying to get away from these guys, he's not getting in their car, right?" So he went back and talked to him, and in the last story they told him was that they held him at gunpoint. And Cole and Jeremy were standing at the church, which has been the story the whole time from Jeremy and everybody else. They were at a church, which it took me a long time to figure out where that church was, but we eventually did. Um, they when they pulled up, Jeremy run in between the church and a house. Cole run down the side of the highway. Well, he run down the side of the highway. The car was facing that the guy stopped and to pick him up. So they punched it. One of them, the story was one of them got out and hit him in the back of the head with a bat. They didn't knock him out, but they put him in the car at gunpoint and took him back to Goldsboro to wait on Rudy and them to get back.
So again, so many people, so many players, so many potential, suspects in terms of people that knew something, and
Right.
and didn't talk. You have worked with this private investigator and you have done a lot of things to try to find your son. At this point, you believe your son's remains. Talk about that a little bit. I know you've actually dug up some of the yards where some of these people lived and they no longer live there. So you've asked people, who now live there, I guess either the owners or whatever, to say, "Hey, can we dig up this yard and here's why." And you haven't found anything, but you keep looking.
Right. So yeah, that was another hard time because I had so much hope, right, that maybe we'd find something. Because at one time, whether he was there or not, that was kind of the story. They had a little camper they kind of stayed out back in. It was on a concrete pad, and so when we go up there, which we had pictures of the camper and the concrete pad there at one time, right? Um, Even on Google Earth, you could see the concrete pad there. Well, when we go to do all this and we finally get up there, the concrete pad's gone, right? And the camper. So um, why all that happened, I don't know. But David wound up getting a backhoe and we dug up the whole yard. He got permission from the owner. Found a lot of girls' underclothes buried in the yard, a ton of animal bones, um, but never found Cole. Or
And I know you haven't given up. I know one of the things you said to me, I looked back, the last time I interviewed you was in 2021 for another podcast I was working on. And you said it felt like drowning, but never dying. And that is, I'm imagining, still where you are in terms of wanting some resolution.
I mean, I think I still feel like that at times. Time goes on. Um, the grief never goes away, but sometimes it gets a little easier. But it still feels like that at times. Lay in bed, can't go to sleep, thinking about it. Uh, I could be walking around working and just stop and start thinking about it. And it is. Um, it's been 9 years. I just know I'm never gonna give up. Uh,
Is it more important for you to find his remains or to have someone arrested?
uh, that's kind of hard. That's a hard one. I would love to have his like a piece of him, right? I'd love to know where he's at. I think more than anything. Uh, but I would like to see justice served at the same time.
And really, to find him, I mean, it could just be a tip, right? It doesn't have to be somebody putting themselves on the line. It could be an anonymous tip. It could be somebody just telling you, and you've been asking for that.
That's all it needs. And there's so many people that's kind of involved in this that I think at some point maybe to come out. We got a tip here. I don't know. It was probably 4 or 5 months ago from a family member of someone involved. I don't want to say no names because it's still kind of ongoing. Um, but they believe he's buried on that property, and I kind of, or around that property. Um, and it's something we believe that area the whole time, right? So it's just a matter of whenever the police or SBI is going to take initiative to go search that. I know I talked with another detective, and they were waiting on some other recordings and some other stuff that they needed. But
Do you still have hope, Chris, that this is going to be solved?
yeah, I do. One day, I have some kind of hope that somewhere somebody has slipped, right? Um, I don't know. I know that uh, nobody taught why the whole time where they were in jail and kind of understand, that there was somebody threatening all of them. But that don't happen forever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I want to point out, obviously, if anyone has any information, they can reach out to the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation or to the Benson, North Carolina Police Department and
That's
let them know.
they can message me. I won't ever give them up. I just want
Okay.
where my son's at.
Well, thank you so much for talking again about him. And fingers crossed, if we can just keep getting the information out there, that eventually someone who knows something, because like you said, there's a lot of people involved in this, will at least get the information to you.
I hope one day that